World War II. Hello everyone, welcome back to Amin Media. Please stay tuned and watch till the end, and don't forget to subscribe, like, share and comment for future topics. The devastation of the Great War, also known as World War I, had greatly destabilized Europe, and in many respects World War II grew out of issues left unresolved by that earlier conflict. In particular, political and economic instability in Germany and lingering resentment over the harsh terms imposed by the Versailles Treaty fueled the rise to power of Adolf Hitler and his National Socialist Party, also known as the Nazis. After becoming Chancellor in 1933, Hitler swiftly consolidated power and pronounced himself as supreme leader in 1934. Obsessed with the idea of the superiority of the pure German race, which he called Aryan, Hitler believed that the war was the only way to gain the necessary living space for the race to expand. In the mid-1930s, he began the rearmament of Germany, secretly and in violation of the Versailles Treaty. After signing alliances with Japan and Italy against the Soviet Union, Hitler sent troops to occupy Austria in 1938 and the following year took over Czechoslovakia. Hitler's open aggression went unchecked, as the United States and Soviet Union were concentrated on internal politics at the time, and neither France nor Britain were eager for confrontation. Outbreak of World War II, 1939. In late August 1939, Hitler and Soviet leader Joseph Stalin signed the German-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact, which incited a frenzy of worry in London and Paris. Hitler had long planned an invasion of Poland, a nation to which Great Britain and France had guaranteed military support if it was attacked by Germany. The pact with Stalin meant that Hitler would not face a war on two fronts once he invaded Poland, and would have Soviet assistance conquering and dividing the nation itself. On September 1st, 1939, Hitler invaded Poland from the west, and 2 days later, France and Britain declared war on Germany, beginning World War II. On September 17th, Soviet troops invaded Poland from the east. Under attack from both sides, Poland fell quickly, and by early 1940, Germany and Soviet Union had divided control over the nation. Stalin's forces then moved to occupy the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and defeated a resistant Finland in the Russo-Finnish War. During the 6 months following the invasion of Poland, the lack of action on the part of Germany and the Allies in the West led to the talk in the news media of a phony war. At sea, however, the British and German navies faced off in a heated battle, and the lethal German U-boat submarines struck at merchant shipping bound for Britain, sinking more than 100 vessels in the first 4 months of World War II. World War II in the West, 1940 to 1941. On April 9, 1940, Germany simultaneously invaded Norway and occupied Denmark, and the war began in earnest. On May 10th, German forces swept through Belgium and Netherlands in what became known as Blitzkrieg, or Lightning War. 3 days later, Hitler's troops crossed the Meuse River and struck French forces at Sedan, located at the northern end of the Maginot Line, an elaborate chain of fortification constructed after World War I and considered an impenetrable defense barrier. In fact, the Germans broke through the line with their tanks and planes and continued to the rear, rendering it useless. The British Expeditionary Force BEF was evacuated by sea from Dunkirk in late May, while in south, French forces mounted a doomed resistance. With France on the verge of collapse, Benito Mussolini of Italy put his Pact of Steel with Hitler into action, and Italy declared war against France and Britain on June 10th. On June 14th, German forces entered Paris. A new government formed by Marshal Philippe Pétain, France's hero of World War I, requested an armistice 2 nights later. France was subsequently divided into 2 zones, one under German military occupation and the other under Pétain's government. Hitler now turned his attention to Britain, which had the defensive advantage of being separated from the continent by the English Channel. To pave the way for an amphibious invasion dubbed Operation Sea Lion, German planes bombed Britain extensively throughout the summer of 1940, including night raids on London and other industrial centers that caused heavy civilian casualties and damage. The Royal Air Force eventually defeated the German Air Force in the Battle of Britain, and Hitler postponed his plans to invade. With Britain's defensive resources pushed to the limit, Prime Minister Winston Churchill began receiving crucial aid from the US under the Lend-Lease Act passed by Congress in early 1941. World War II in the Pacific from 1941 to 1943. With Britain facing Germany in Europe, the United States was the only nation capable of combating Japanese aggression, which by late 1941 included an expansion of its ongoing war with China and the seizure of the European colonial holdings in the Far East. On December 7, 1941, 360 Japanese aircrafts attacked the major US naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, taking the Americans completely by surprise and claiming the lives of more than 2,300 troops. The attack on Pearl Harbor served to unify American public opinion in favor of entering World War II, and on December 8th, Congress declared war on Japan with only one dissenting vote. Germany and the other Axis powers promptly declared war on the United States. After a long string of Japanese victories, the US Pacific Fleet won the Battle of Midway in June 1942, which proved to be a turning point in the war. On Guadalcanal, one of the southern Solomon Islands, the Allies also had success against Japanese forces in a series of battles from August 1942 to February 1943, helping turn the tide further in the Pacific. In mid-1943, Allied naval forces began an aggressive counterattack against Japan, involving a series of amphibious assaults on key Japanese-held islands in the Pacific. This island-hopping strategy proved successful, and Allied forces moved closer to their ultimate goal of invading the Japanese homeland. Toward Allied victory in World War II from 1943 to 1945. In North Africa, British and American forces had defeated the Italians and Germans by 1943. An Allied invasion of Sicily and Italy followed, and Mussolini's government fell in July 1943. Though, Allied fighting against the Germans in Italy would continue until 1945. On World War II's Eastern Front, a Soviet counteroffensive launched in November 1942 ended the bloody Battle of Stalingrad, which had seen some of the fiercest combat of the war. The approach of winter, along with dwindling food and medical supplies, spelled the end for German troops there, and the last of them surrendered on January 31, 1943. On June 6, 1944, celebrated as D-Day, the Allies began a massive invasion of Europe, landing 156,000 British, Canadian, and American troops on the beaches of Normandy, France. In response, Hitler poured all the remaining strengths of his army into Western Europe, ensuring Germany's defeat in the east. The Soviet troops soon advanced into Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and Romania, while Hitler gathered his forces to drive the Americans and British back from Germany in the Battle of Bulge. From December 1944 to January 1945, the last major German offensive of the war. World War II ended with the unconditional surrender of the Axis powers. On 8th of May 1945, the Allies accepted Germany's surrender about a week after Adolf Hitler had committed suicide. VE Day, Victory in Europe, celebrates the end of Second World War on 8th of May 1945. World War II casualties. World War II proved to be the deadliest international conflict in history, taking the lives of 60 to 80 million people, including 6 million Jews who died at the hand of Nazis during the Holocaust. Civilians made up an estimated 50 to 55 million deaths from the war, while military comprised 21 to 25 million of those lost during the war. Millions more were injured, and still more lost their homes and properties. Okay guys, that is it for today's video. If you liked it, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment for future topics. Until next time.